it out. Hi, everyone joining. See, like, I like to read the sign so I can see. And when I do this, I can't see everyone, or I can't read the thing. But uh, hi, Donna. Hi, Brenda, Kathleen, Kelly, Sunil, Sonia. Hi, everyone, for joining. Oh, let me also go live on Instagram. It's just usually me. So if you see why, like, why is she multitasking so much? It's actually Ben is helping me. He's the assistant today, and he's like helping admit people. Um, okay, so let's start in a second. We are live. Hi, everyone. So excited to have you here. Welcome to Community of Seven's Microlearning. I'm Lan Fan, founder and CEO of Community of Seven. If you're joining via the live Zoom audience or you're watching this via live stream on LinkedIn, YouTube, Meta, or Instagram, drop where you're tuning in from. Um, Introduce yourself, what city you're coming from, and feel free to introduce yourself in the chat or the comments. Tell us your name, what city you're coming from, and also if you want to connect with other folks on LinkedIn, put your LinkedIn profiles to broaden your LinkedIn community. I'm so glad you're here. And a quick reminder, this is not a one-way talk. Your voice matters too. So if something really resonates with you or if something Ben says really, blows your mind, just let us know in the comments. If you have a takeaway, a book recommendation, a quote, feel free to put it in the chat or the comment. Same thing if you're watching this via live stream as well. So, brief introduction for those who are kind of new to our community of seven microlearnings. Um, it's really simple. And, we bring in leading authors, coaches, executives, CEOs, founders, and subject matter experts to help you elevate both your mindset and your skill set. And in a world where change is persistent, we hope to give you a little dose of hope, optimism, and optimization along the way. So today is part of our microlearning series where we focus on one powerful topic and we go deep in a short amount of time. So really quickly before I introduce the topic, for those who are in the live audience or if you're on the live stream, you could just, if you're in the live audience, if your camera is on and you want to say yes, you could put two hands up and then hands down if the answer is no. And if you're watching this and your camera's off or you're on live stream, just write yes or no in the comment or in the chat. So, quick question. Have you ever had a moment that forced you to pause and reevaluate everything? Have you ever felt lonely in something you were supposed to be strong through? Do you have someone in your life navigating a health crisis, grief, burnout, or a major life disruption with you? Have you ever wondered, how do I turn what happened to me into something meaningful? Last question. Do you believe community or having a community, friendships, can be a leadership strategy, not just a personal comfort? Awesome. Thank you so much for your answers. Um, so, today we're going to be talking about how to turn your crisis into a calling. And I want to start with a really quick truth. A lot of us are trained to perform through the pain, right? Um, we're taught to keep producing, keep achieving, keep showing up, especially if people rely on us. Um, this is especially true for people who are parents or maybe caregivers to elderly parents. However, life doesn't always ask for our productivity, right? Sometimes it asks us and requires us to be honest. And what I've learned both personally and professionally is that transformation often starts the same way. It's a moment that humbles you, right? Then a choice to rebuild. Which brings me to today's guest because Ben's story is a masterclass in how to turn a personal crisis into a mission that serves thousands. But before I introduce Ben, I want to share a little story with you. I was actually Ben's EA um, in the dorm. Wait, not EA. What's this? RA, sorry, resident assistant at Stanford. And several years after he was also one of my favorite. You shouldn't have favorites as an RA, but he was one of my favorite students. He was a freshman, I think, when I was a junior. And I just remember he was such a positive person and just caring. And I always, fondly remembered him. A few years after graduation, I got a call out of the blue from Ben. And it shocked me because he had quickly told me that he had almost died. And we're both in our 20s right now, like maybe in our he was in his mid 20s, I was in my late 20s. And he's saying that he had an aneurysm. And Ben didn't know it at that time, but I was going through a really painful period in my life. At that time, I had just sold my company. I was in the music industry for years, and I was really struggling trying to figure out who I was. And at this time, I was also suffering from intense social anxiety, where I would not leave my house for days. And for those who have ever suffered from social anxiety, you know that your world starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so when Ben called me at that time, he didn't know this, but I did not leave my apartment probably for a month. And so, we ended up talking and we did what all 20-year-olds would do when we find out that one of our friends almost died. We went on a Texas Hold'em tour in Texas. I had never played poker at that time, but he was like, "Come visit me in Texas and we'll go all around Texas." And I want to share a photo really quickly of this trip. So that's me. We're like probably in our late 20s or something. That's Ben and our his two friends. But this was such a pivotal time for me because my world started opening up at that time. Because at this time, I had social anxiety. I had a fear of just talking to people. And when I went on this trip with Ben through Texas, we started meeting strangers. We went kayaking. We had like such an amazing experience. And my world started opening up, right? And I started opening up. And I think I've told Ben years later, but he helped change my life. And my world got bigger at that time. And I realized the power of community in a lot of ways. And while Ben was recovering from a challenge that most of us could not even imagine, almost dying at such a young age, his strength really helped me overcome my own pain and start dealing with my own social anxiety. So let me now welcome Ben. Let me put the spotlight on you. Okay, hey Ben. So let me introduce you real quick. I am so honored to welcome my good friend Ben Muñoz. As I mentioned, in his late 20s, he almost passed away from a life-threatening brain aneurysm, AVM-related hemorrhage. And what surprised him most wasn't just the medical complexity. It was the isolation of recovering from something rare. So he built what he couldn't find. First, avmssurvivors.org, then what became known as Ben's Friend, a network of safe, moderated online support communities for people living with rare disease and chronic conditions. Today, Ben's Friends reports 70,000 plus members globally and 200,000 monthly visitors across its communities. And alongside his advocacy work, he also became the founder and CEO of Nadine West, a women's personal styling subscription business, a multi-billion-dollar company showing that what it looks like when purpose and performance grow side by side. So without further ado, welcome Ben. Hello.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, friend. So let's kind of rewind it back a little bit to that moment that kind of changed everything for you. Um, Take it back to that season. What happened, and what do you remember most about the early days of recovery?
Yeah.
And
I'll even go back a little bit first before that. Before
awesome.
that, I had like the pretty traditional like corporate pathway where I was a software engineer and then I went to business school. And so the pathway was going to be, some traditional pathway. I think that was like where I was headed. And so in business school, this aneurysm happened between the first and second years of business school. So I was a summer intern. Um, and I was just having dinner with a friend of mine, and then out of the blue, I started feeling these pains in my head, um, and I knew something was wrong. So I was like, "Oh my God, something's wrong." Um, I was nauseous and I was vomiting on the sidewalk, and so I drove myself to the hospital. It was nearby. My friend was a medical school, and so I drove myself to the hospital, took myself to the emergency room, and then I was in line at the emergency room. And then I tell this part of the story because Lon knows who this hero is. Is while I was in line, I called Kevin Yee, and Kevin Yee answered, and he was a resident. He was in residency, and I explained the symptoms, and he said, "Oh my God, like whatever you do, don't stand in line because it sounds like you're having a brain aneurysm. Go to the front of the line, give the phone to the nurse, and I'll tell her what to do." So I handed the phone to the nurse. The nurse pulled me out of line and then took me to the back, in which case there was no time for surgery, surgical prep, or anything. I just basically, on the spot, had emergency brain surgery to take care of this brain aneurysm and relieve the pressure. And so that was just already like a remarkable set of like coincidences that I was near medical school, that my friend picked up, that he told the nurse exactly what to do, and all of that was in maybe like 38 to 45 minutes total. And then I was in ICU for about a week or so, recovering, kind of like what you might see on TV, where the person is like with a walker, slowly kind of learning to walk again, um, but uh, but um, but recovering, rapidly. Thankfully, nothing serious happened. And then once that initial period of my physical recovery happened, and I was back at home, back at my parents' place, then the emotional side of this took over. And I just had to, like, it was, can you imagine, like, processing what just happened and processing all the remarkable and coincidental events that just happened? What do you do now? So that's where kind of the emotional, I don't know, a rebirth happened, where I had to, and I'll pause there in case we can, like, if you want to jump into a different direction. But yeah, so that was the beginning of, wow, emotional rebirth. What do I do now? And like a month into it, like, okay,
So
what
you
now?
mentioned Kevin Yee. So he was another Stanford student. We were in the same dorm, Okada House at Stanford University. So I think I was a teacher assistant or TA or something like that, and then an RA the next year. But you had kept in touch with one of your college friends and just knew he was a doctor and just called him. So that call maybe saved your life in a lot of ways because if you waited in that line, you might have died.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But he's like, he called him immediately. He picked up immediately. And if you know residency, they're in there for 80, 90 hours, but he just happened to be on his day off.
When you mentioned that, um, it made me realize, it's something that as I've gotten older, I've realized, and I think we all kind of realize it as we get older, is just how short life is, and tomorrow is not promised. This is like you're healthy in your 20s, you're, finishing or have finished biz school, and suddenly this comes in a wave. You mentioned that loneliness was, um, you know, the sense of loneliness after this incident kind of happened and
Yeah.
you felt isolated because, you're in your 20s and you almost die of an aneurysm, right? Um, what was the hardest non-medical part and what did you wish someone had said to you at that time?
Yeah. So that was the next, right, 2 years was, what do I do now? What do I do now? And everyone's super supportive, friends and family, very supportive. But I had no one to talk to who really understood what I just went through. So that was the loneliness component. And, it's, um, it's the value of support groups and community, right? Like I didn't have that at the time. And so that's what led to kind of the next step, which is creating my own community because of that loneliness and fear and uncertainty. Um, yes, a lot of loneliness during those days.
Yeah. And it's so funny because we kind of have similar paths, you know, in a lot of ways in terms of not equal in terms of pain. But when I had gone through my layoff during the beginning of the pandemic, I just felt so alone and I just gotten laid off. And so that's when I started Community of Seven because it was during the pandemic. Everyone was kind of like in fear. And I was like, I want to bring executives and people together to talk like this, right? Um, and one of the things I think I haven't had a conversation about with you, and you were saying that community is the best medicine. So, what was your whole process of, you almost die, and then you had this idea to create Ben's Friend? Can you explain what it is, how you started it, and like who you serve? Just in
Yeah.
case listening might, find a community that might be helpful for them.
So I went online, and this was let me see, this was way before Facebook was a thing. I went online and I searched for people who had had this AVM type of aneurysm, and I couldn't really find much out there. I found some like mailing lists. And so because I had a software background, I was like, well, maybe the way to find my tribe is to create the online community and then attract the tribe and tell them to come find me and to come find each other. So that was basically it was actually a book called Tribes by Seth Godin that inspired this. And my good friend Scott Orn, again, community, my close friend Scott Orn from business school, who sent me this book and said, like, this is this is what you probably are looking for is your tribe. And so I read the book and I was inspired and I created a website and I started spreading the word on message boards and mailing lists. Again, before Facebook, and eventually, so the first month I think there was like 10 people. There were friends and family who joined me on my community for support group for this disease, um, AVM, AVM aneurysms. And then that group of like maybe 10 people turned into 50, turned into 100, turned into 500. And then it took on a life of its own. And then my same friend Scott Orrin suggested, hey, you should continue building upon what you built here. And maybe there's other people with other rare diseases who don't have their community. And so we started creating more communities of other rare diseases. And then that became a whole network of rare disease support communities. And then an official 501(c)(3) nonprofit called bensfriends.org.
Unmute myself. I think that was a really powerful thing that you just said, and I want the folks who are kind of watching right now to really let that sink in. If you can't find your community, you have the option of creating your community, right? And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to create a Ben's Friend and, the big network and all this other stuff. But sometimes if you're feeling lonely, if you feel, and I think that this is a period where a lot of people are feeling kind of just lonely. We talk about the lonely epidemic, but the power of like bringing people together, right? Um, as you know, with Community of Seven, I'll call you raindrops, right? The reason why is all of us are like raindrops. Well, we do seem small and inconsequential, but when we come together, we become the ocean, right? That's how change happens. Same thing with what Ben created. It's like these people who were feeling so alone with either these deathly illnesses like cancer or these rare diseases, and they didn't have a support group. So he created this forum where people could connect with each other. And I think that's very powerful, right? You created a movement in a lot of ways, Ben. So tell me, for those who are looking for community, maybe on this call, or for those who want to start their own community, um, what actually makes it work? We know
Mm.
Ben's Friends is moderated, it's designed to be safe, but what principles, guardrails can we create if we wanted to create our own kind of community to support, whatever group that we feel is missing?
Yes, I have a lot of experience with kind of seeing patterns with these communities because we have had dozens over the years, 40 to 50 communities, and not all of them take off, right? Some of them don't take off, some of them do. And the number one trait of those communities takes off is um, persistence. I think is people, the leader, the founder, the moderators were just so passionate about their community. So like it's just, you may not like if you're building this is online community. If you're building an online community, it takes real like heart and soul and people who care and leadership. That's the number one thing. It's not the technology, it's not the marketing. It's you could have like a Reddit community, right? And which communities on Reddit take off. There's any one of they all have the same playing field. It's like the heart and soul of the people who lead the way.
I love that. And, since a lot of the folks who are on here are on LinkedIn, they're leaders, they're executives, maybe some are founders working for corporations. For the leaders who are listening, what does your experience teach about building belonging for teams, especially when people are struggling quietly? And, you're not only the founder of Ben's Friend, you also, founded and started a multi-million dollar company, like a clothing subscription company. And I asked you if I could share this because, Ben's a good friend of mine. And I remember when he first shared his story of starting it and how he was couch surfing for 2 years before starting this company. Like, how did you even get into like, so I guess it's two questions. From there, in terms of how you created your second company, and then what community informs you as a leader building this for your employees, I guess.
Mm, yeah. So the background and the origin story of this clothing company is relates to again that near fatal my near fatal brain aneurysm because I think when you start something it is very scary and like super scary and I get that it's just fear of failure, right? Fear of embarrassment, fear of shame. um, and it's like probably the number one thing that keeps leaders, entrepreneurs from starting something from scratch. And so the way I overcame it is a way that I don't think anybody can really replicate, but you can learn something from it. So my solution for that problem was that I almost died. And so when I recovered, I didn't really care anymore. Like emotional, the fear just left. And I was like, what? Who cares? We're all going to die. We're all going to die one day, 100%. And it's scary to say, it's scary to hear, but it's the truth. And once you accept it, and I was forced to accept it, it was forced upon me to accept that. And so when I accepted that, the fear just like really left. I didn't really care if I failed big. It doesn't matter as long as I tried. So that's what led me to other things, including um, like a kind of a stint in medicine too, but also abandoning things and starting over multiple times, starting this company, which was new to me, and I don't have a background in it, but why not? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Like we're all, it's just you get one shot at life, and if you're lucky like me, you get two shots at life, and you have to make the most of it. So I started that. And what was the second part of your question, or
Um,
another part of your question?
Before we go on, I want to kind of touch upon that the power of that statement, of fear in general. And I remember I had another guest come, and she had left her big corporate job, And she had that fear of like, okay, what's a, what if I fail? And her mentor went to her and said, think about the worst thing that can happen. And she paused for a second and she was like, the worst thing that can happen is I'll have to find a job. And when she said it out loud, right, it was kind of like, she was like, oh, if it doesn't work out, me building this business, I will just go back to corporate. And when
Yeah,
so a lot of times the fear is more of the unknown. And your fear, you basically faced the biggest fear that most people have, which is almost dying. And so anything else after that, right,
yeah.
became a little bit less.
And yeah, and then also even so I couch surfed for a year. Before that, I thought about the same exact question. I was like, okay, what is the worst that could possibly happen? Worst, worst, worst. Like realistically, worst is that I'm homeless, right? And I'm living on the streets. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do that first so that I'm not scared of that anymore. So I left school and moved to Austin and I lived in my car for a month in the parking lot of a grocery store. And I was like, all right, if this is as bad as it gets, okay, so be it. So I'd shower every morning at the gym, and then I'd work all day at at Starbucks, and I had ramen noodles and beans and sardines, and I was like, all right, this is the worst it could possibly get. All right, I'm still here, I'm still alive, everything's fine. Family and friends still support me, and then it went up from there.
I love that. So the other question I had was just like, okay, now you're the CEO, you're the founder, you're leading teams. How important has building communities within your companies been? Especially, I think about times like now where we have a lot of people who are struggling, um, for various reasons and, societal and turmoil in the world. How important is building community within your staff?
Mhm. Yeah. So if you are a business leader, an entrepreneur, a founder, I think it's like there's a saying out there that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you could have the most thoughtfully designed strategic plan in the world, but if your culture is terrible, if your team doesn't care about what happens to the company, what happens to each other, it's going to fail, right? So it's much better to have a strong culture. And so that's what I wanted to do early on. So we intentionally focus so much on culture and culture. And you can get really academic about it, but I think at a core is basically a community of people who care about each other. So that's it. Like just and it starts from the top. If the leader doesn't really care about everyone else and just cares about the numbers, you may hit your numbers, but it's not going to last very long. But I think if you guys care about your team and you really care and you generally like really get to know them, their families, want them to succeed, want them to improve, then that's going to be the core, I think, of your culture, and that's basically the same as building a community of people who work together at an organization.
I love that. So the next question I have for you is, you had to rebuild a lot. You know, first after, you almost passed away, you had this life-threatening incident, um, and you kind of had to rebuild your body, right? Get your health back. Then you built Ben's friend. Then you went to this transition of kind of rebuilding and building this now startup, right? What did rebuilding look like in real life, day to day, and what kept you going when it felt impossibly slow or difficult?
Mm, yeah, I think probably gratitude, like being grateful or in my situation, easy, right? Being grateful for just waking up every day, right? Maybe in other people's situation, being grateful for if people in your like I think Gary Vee says this, like, if people in your life are healthy, then it's a good day. So just gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Like not the next day is not, we don't want to take it for granted. It's not a given. We never know what can happen. So just gratitude. And that is my personal source of motivation for when things get tough, to be not um not focusing on what I don't have, but focusing what I do have.
Yeah, and I think gratitude is such a powerful, powerful thing. So I want to kind of now kind of talk about purpose and performance. So there's folks who came to this call or who are watching this via live stream who have gone through maybe a divorce, maybe layoff, maybe near death, maybe a layoff transition. Um, how do you turn your pain into something that becomes your passion or your day job in some ways too? Because for those who have been here, one of the things we always kind of bring up is ikigai, which is a Japanese term of finding your reason for being. And in ikigai, it's like kind of four concentric circle, right? In the middle is this, what you're meant for, right? And the four concentric circle is what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs. Because you could love singing, but if no one will pay you for singing, it's not going to become a profession, right? Or you could have, which was me for probably 2 decades. I was good, very good at being in that corporate slog or worker, right? But it wasn't necessarily my passion. And I felt like I was kind of slowly dying inside. So, how do you kind of align it where you definitely have the love and the purpose, but you also, I think, which is rare, you found something that people needed and that you would get paid for. How does someone who is on this call right now find that magic kind of spot?
I would be give yourself a lot of compassion.
Mm.
Like it's not. And I will also clarify that Ben's friends, something I'm good at, something the world needs. What else is there? What are the other something that I'm good
And
at,
what you
something
can
the
get
world
paid for.
needs? Okay, that's it. I'm not
And
getting
that's
paid for Ben's
probably the
friends.
one that people don't, because like remember at Stanford graduation, we're like, follow your purpose, follow your passion. But if no one will pay you for that passion or purpose, you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage, right?
Yeah.
So,
I would say do it anyways.
yeah.
Yeah, I do it anyways. Like Ben's Friends is a non-for-profit. I'm the largest donor every year. I don't draw a salary from it, but it gives me tremendous purpose,
Mm.
and people need it. And I don't get paid for it, so it's not a profession. And who cares? I do it anyways. You know? It's just it doesn't have to be. That's why maybe we're looking for a unicorn sometimes, and we're maybe a little bit hard on ourselves. And maybe it's okay if we have a day job and do something on the side that fulfills the deeper meaning and purpose. Because I think I was talking to somebody about this, and in Japan they do have ikigai, but sometimes it's not all in one thing. Sometimes like we're asking too much of a profession for it to fulfill all those four. And so in Japan, sometimes they sequence them. Sometimes they have something, that meets three of the four, and then a different three of the four, and then another three in the four. Um, so if you're one of those fortunate few that has all four of those in one profession, like you've got a unicorn. And if not, I don't know, just be compassionate towards yourself, and it's okay. Lots of people have day jobs that, I would not stay in a day job that you hate, obviously, but if it's, you can find meaning in it in other ways. Maybe I'm at a utilities conference this week. And so if you work at a city utilities, you can find meaning in that you're helping to keep your city clean,
Mm.
um, or something. And there's meaning in that. It doesn't have to be you're saving the world. So yeah.
I love that. And it kind of reminds me of like I was oh, and also for those who are in the live Zoom audience, I'm going to be opening it up for questions soon, so get ready to ask your questions. But Ben, what you just said kind of reminds me of I remember I was kind of going through this period where I was trying to figure my next thing. I sold my company and I was like, what's my purpose? What's my meaning? And I was struggling. And I remember I had went on this surf camp in Costa Rica and there was this one woman and we were talking about finding your purpose and your passion. And she was like, my mother told me there's two types of people. There's people who find their purpose and their passion in work, right? Think of doctors or people who are compelled for a certain field because that's their passion. And she was like, some people go home to their passion, and their passion might be their family or their community or a hobby or a nonprofit, right? And understanding that sometimes you're not going to get everything in one place, right? Home or work. And sometimes it's about living in a few different places, right? There's a reason why you created Ben's Friends. It's still there, but what pays your bills, of course, is your entrepreneurial pursuits, right? So next question I have for you, Ben, and we're going to be opening it up soon for questions. Um, and it's you've um, you've built two worlds, patient advocacy and also business leadership. What did entrepreneurship teach you about scaling something that matters without losing your mission?
Mm, yeah, maybe the answer is inside of the question is if you have a mission, it makes it easier to scale.
Yeah,
I think sometimes like our mission at Ben's Friends is kind of obvious, but mission at Nadine West, we scaled slowly from 0 to 500 employees because we focus on creating something that we're all proud of. I think that was the mission, like
yeah,
is creating something that we're proud of.
yeah.
And so that actually made it easy to scale.
And I think it's also you don't need to necessarily have the answer right away. I think is as just kind of having similar kind of experience when I started Community of Seven. Um, I had no idea what I was building. I just had a name, right? And then it first started off as executive masterminds, but I soon realized that that wasn't my passion or purpose. It's not what I wanted, even though it's very successful financially. It wasn't something that as an entrepreneur, I was ready to go full steam ahead and I didn't want to get venture capital and do subscriptions and the subscription model, etc. And so I pivoted to training and development because I realized that my passion was training and development. And your passion can kind of change at different points as well, or you start something new, which is what you did. Um, so are there anyone in the audience that has in the Zoom live Zoom audience that have a question? And I'm just going to read out some comments while we're waiting. And Ikigai is a wonderful thing to explore if you haven't already. My purpose is to help. I love that, Anne. Um, and I think we also have Terrell, who is kind of going through a period of change as well with moving as well. And Jetha, thank you for that definition. Is there anyone that wants to kind of cover something? Oh, there's my friend Jason. Hi, Jason. So let me spotlight you. Oh, wait, I lost you. You were just here. Where did you go? Oh, there you are. So let me spotlight you. Hi, Jason. Welcome. Always good seeing your wonderful face. So, what question do you have for Ben?
Ben, I wanted to thank you for joining Lynn's Community of Seven. I appreciate you sharing your journey. Certainly, each of us have some really great moments or tough moments that sort of pull us through. I really appreciate how intentional and motivational this has been for Ben's Friends, but different areas of your life. I wanted to thank you for commenting to this group around not being careless, but caring less. And I had heard this 3 weeks ago. I placed in the chat, Sade Zarate just put out a book of her own. I know Lan had asked for suggestions and books. Um, we all have self-trust issues, right? We all have to rewire ourselves. And I wanted to ask you, if you look at your current state, how do you see yourself adjusting to you meeting your future?
Mm. Can
Thank
you
you.
clarify the question?
There I think of the past, the present, and the future, right? Your past has opportunities to reflect and learn and grow. and the future has hopes, dreams, aspirations of what could be next. Some of these people that maybe have joined the community today feel like they're in crisis mode to determine what their future becomes. One of the things I know that you and Land have in common, and I do as well, is that today isn't good enough. There has to be another step. Not like the whole staircase, but just another step. What would be the connection from how your crisis brought you to your present and what is intended, or what do you want to tackle and encounter into the future?
Yeah. Going into the future, I think you're never going to know 100% like what the future is going to hold, right? It's just going to be, you've got like a little bit of a gut feeling, and there's never going to be certainty. And that's probably as much as we're ever going to get, is a little bit of gut feeling, and then, or intuition. And then you experiment, right? Like you try moving forward a little bit inch by inch, and if it feels right, keep, continue. And if it doesn't, like, just, you know, don't feel like you have to continue down the path if it doesn't feel right. So just like backtrack and then go another direction. Go another direction. Just be aware of like what, what the universe is telling you about like what direction that you're headed. That's how I approach what to do next. I'm right now. I'm switching industries. I'm in the process of selling the company, switching industries, also moving from Austin to another city. So there's a lot of changes going on. It can be really scary, big transitions. And I'm sure you all have your own big transitions. And so with the way that we're dealing with it, me and my wife are um, um, just giving ourselves a lot of compassion, knowing that we don't know exactly what's going to happen, and we'll just try baby steps and then see how things go.
I love that. That's beautiful. I want to read something Sonia wrote in the comments, which is really beautiful. My problems seem so minor in comparison to Ben's. Just an illegal dismissal after 1.5 decades. I can say one thing right now. The right thing finds you without chasing it. Then when you know things fall into place. I would impossibly have energy for those when stressed and anxious. So I love that. Just like it reminds me of the the poem. What trying to remember the author. It's slipping my mind right now. But it's this whole notion of when you are in peace and when you let the fear melt away, what you want comes and finds you. You don't have to chase after it, right? And I think for a lot of us, we chase after things. We're like, we chase for approval. Like when I get that promotion, when someone funds me, when, you know, I get the green light, or when I get that degree, then I'm going to start living my life. And I think the example or blueprint you gave is you didn't wait, Ben, right? You were sleeping on people's couches until you could start this company. You grew it to this multi-million dollar company. And then now you didn't wait for permission. You're leaving this industry and you're starting a new one, right? Um, let's talk about asking for help without shame, because a lot of high performers struggle to ask for support. Um, what's a simple script or mindset shift that helps you? And I think one
Mhm.
of the things that you're really good at, Ben, is keeping in touch with people, which is something I definitely need to work with, because I will not talk to friends for like 4 or 5 years, but I'll get a call. I think you just called me out of the blue. It had been 4 or 5 years after graduation, and you just called me out of the blue. And I think about you being in line, almost dying, and calling a friend from college who's a doctor, who basically gave you this, life-saving, advice. Myself, I do a lot of things kind of, maybe it's my introvert nature, the whole social anxiety thing, but I have a lot of problems asking for help. And I think that's
Mhm.
something that, how do you overcome that? And
Yeah.
what have you done to kind of keep those relationships top of mind?
Yeah. So there are two separate answers. One, is keeping track of everyone's birthday. That's what I do now. That's my thing. So I've got a spreadsheet and it's got maybe 300 names on it. And these are people that I want to keep in touch with. I've got their birthday and then I send them an email or I give them a call or sometimes I FaceTime them if, if I want to be like super intrusive and it's a good friend, I'll FaceTime them. So yeah, I mean, that's something that you can do today. Spreadsheet, people's names, birthdays, and email them. And that has been fantastic. That's how I've reconnected with people, found investors, found business partners, found employees to join the team. It's there. And then number two is asking for help. Um, I think it's just you have to make it the default, as I just always play the role of rookie or newbie and never like I don't there's no need to be I know I know so much. Like it's so way, 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 way better if you pretend you know nothing about something and you ask for people's advice. Like, hey, I don't know anything about this. I just read about it for 15 minutes on ChatGPT. Could I ask you for your advice? And then that works. That's just the default. Just do that over and over and over again.
I mean, like the power of humility, right?
Mm,
And I think people by default want to help other people, especially friends. But I think it's important that you also keep in touch with people, right? And that's what you do. You have a spreadsheet of 300 people that you want to just keep in touch with, and you remember their birthday and you reach out. And I think that's one of the things that when I talk to executives, it's usually during one period in their career where they reach out, and it's after they've gotten laid off or something happens and they're trying to transition or start their own company and they're like, where do I begin? And I'm like, you should have been keeping in touch with people and networking and building these relationships, you know, while you still had your day job, right?
yeah.
And it's important of building these connections and relationships and your community, you know, throughout before you need the help, right? Which
Mhm.
is really kind of important.
Yeah. Happy
Um,
birthday. How's life? How's your family? Do you need
exactly,
anything?
exactly. And you're so good at that. You're so good at that. Um, Anyone else? Let me read Anne's comment. Keeping in touch is so necessary and fulfilling. Each month we get a list of new hires. I email each one. Oh, that is beautiful. Tell them what I do, and after a meet and greet, to welcome them and answer any questions they may have about a company. And I've built amazing relationships and connected people to each other. I love every single minute of this. That's so awesome. Um, Terrell says ChatGPT is deteriorating people's brains. It's taking away from self-thinking. And you know what? That's so true. Because if you think about it, relationship building, communication is like it's like a muscle, right? Our brain is a muscle. And if we don't practice it, it's kind of like when I had such crippling social anxiety. I wasn't always like that when I was younger. It's just somewhere in my 20s, my father had passed away. I'd gone through some difficulties and I self-isolated. And so my social anxiety didn't happen overnight. But I didn't, it kind of feeds on itself. And so because I was not talking to anyone and, I was like self-isolating, it grew, right? And I kind of lost my social skills up until that point where I shifted, right? Jessa, let me say, oh, there you are. Let me spotlight you and you have a question. You could just unmute and ask your question.
Hey, g'day Ben, g'day Lan. If you're wondering why I'm whispering, I got up at 3:55 in Melbourne,
Oh,
Australia, in the morning to
welcome from
listen to this because
Australia.
thank you, thank you. The kids are sleeping downstairs, so I'm going to whisper. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear.
I love your story. I actually resonated with pain to purpose really well, and I love your comments about living in your car, not worrying about what happens, especially after you having that experience. Culture eat strategy for breakfast. Grateful how important it is. And the thing that really resonated with me was self-compassion through this journey. My question to you is, for somebody who's actually gone through lots of pain into pleasure, or pain into purpose, or even passion, through my experience with mental illness, and now actually run a program called Let's Talk, is allowing others to talk, but also allowing me to talk as well. Is your journey in your journey through purpose, is it making you the greatest person you can be for the second time?
Oh yeah, first of all, like it's amazing. Thank you for joining. This
You're
is
welcome.
like yeah, I'm super early. That's fantastic. Um Making me into a person. I don't know if the first time, like I was kind of fumbling, right? Like this is me almost dying was one of the best thing that's ever happened to me because it just kind of, it made me appreciate what we have in life. And I don't wish that experience of almost dying upon anybody else, but I do wish kind of the other side. If there was a way, like a magic pill to give that to people, I mean, I wish I could give it to everybody. Um, but yeah, it's very grateful with the lessons that it gave me.
I love that.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Um, so you know this already, Ben. I lost my mom last year, past summer. And for me, that was kind of the wake up moment. I've had many, but like just realizing how short life is. And we keep on postponing and waiting. Like, okay, well, I'll do this once this happens, right? And you start negotiating. Well, I have plenty of time. I'm only, 20, 30, 40, 50. And then pretty soon I had this realization is that I have more years behind me than I do ahead of me. And I think you had the unforeseen blessing of realizing your mortality at such a young age, right? And so, like, I just want to squeeze everything I can from life right now, right? And it's like when I'm being present, Terrell mentioned ChatGPT is deteriorating people's brains, also being on our cell phones. And I know sometimes I'm just tied so tightly to the cell phone and learning to kind of be more present and realizing that it's the experiences, happiness and love, the things that make really life beautiful. Um, but we postpone it. Like I talk to so many executives who are very powerful people in their industry, they're CEOs, and their kids, they don't know their kids. They've never been to a soccer game. They've never built the relationship because they were chasing this. I will be there for my family once I do this. And they turn around and their kids are in college.
Yeah,
Eh, you
I
know,
tell you, those people, one day they're 80 years old, and then they regret having done that. And so, like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's
yeah,
not worth it to have this extreme career success or financial success or monetary success. It's just not worth it. I think we think it is. They think it is, especially, but I think they will realize when they're on their deathbed that it wasn't worth it. There's a balance.
yeah. So Ben, kind of wrapping up soon. What's the one advice you would kind of give to the folks who are on this call who might have gone through big challenges or maybe they're currently facing a lot of pain right now?
Hmm.
I know for me, I've struggled with depression throughout my life, and that sense of like digging through the hole, right, and getting out the hole. And when people ask me for advice, I'm just like, just start small, like start cleaning your room, clean your clothes, take a shower, do your laundry. And that seems like such a irresponsible advice to give about dealing with depression.
Mhm.
But that's what's helped me. It's those small
Yeah.
little things of just waking up and just moving and doing and then climbing it out and then doing the next best thing. and surrounding yourself with people you love. So for for the folks who are on this call, you had to overcome almost dying. What's advice you could give
Yeah.
for people?
I mean, it's not super um spiritual advice, it's very practical advice, but it really, so after I was depressed, I think 2 years in, I remember just feeling depressed and I didn't know what was going on. I can tell you what worked for me was I listened to massive numbers of Tony Robbins tapes. Like that was that's what did it to me. It was just like I had those things on like repeat over and over and over and over again. And I think I just brainwashed myself into getting out of the funk. And it worked. Tony Robbins, God
Yeah.
bless that man. It works.
We become what we listen to and what we watch, right? So as we kind of wrap this up, tell us more about how we can support Ben's friends, where we can find you, you know, anything we need to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's easily searchable on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get me. Ben Muñoz, the little Enye, and easiest way just to connect.
Awesome, awesome. So, folks who are in the live Zoom audience, you know what to do. Put this in gallery mode right now. The one time, turn on your videos, unmute yourself. This is the only time I ask you to turn on your videos and unmute yourself and give a big round of applause for Ben. Woo, Ben! Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone joining, and we will see you at the. Oh, we have one next Tuesday, so come join us next Tuesday, and it's on personal branding. So from this deep stuff to personal branding. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing day. Bye.
Thanks, Ben.